real estate. You're going to come into an organization and occupy space. Take up more as much as you can. That's the goal.
So when you say take up more, like specifically, what does that mean?
Getting more attention as to your value to the organization. Contribute more, network more, take up more space in the room. Look, if you look at what I'm wearing, I take up more space as the person with the smallest frame. Okay, it's no secret that photographers in an event will come find me and stop me and be like, "Gotta have that as part of the reel."
We'll discuss race and how it plays a factor, and how we didn't even talk about this topic because we were afraid.
A Black Executive Perspective.
We are coming to you live from our new BEP studio for another thought-provoking episode of a Black Executive Perspective podcast, a safe space where we discuss all matters related to race, especially race in corporate America. I'm your host, Tony Tidbit.
And I'm your co-host, Chris P. Reed. We want to start off, never want to miss this, thank our partners at Code M Magazine. Code M Magazine, where their mission is saving the Black family by first saving the Black man. That's codemmagazine.com, code M, 2 M's, magazine.com. Check them out.
Yeah, definitely check them out. And you want to check out today. So today we have Albert Thompson, Director of Brand Strategy at Transient Identiti Inc. Albert's here to guide us through the complexities of the business landscape from the perspective of a person of color. Albert will delve into the foundational structures of industries, the vital importance of social currency, and how to balance visionary dreams with the pragmatism needed in the business world. Albert Thompson, welcome to a Black Executive Perspective podcast, my brother.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me. It sounds official. I love it. So I'm going to be amongst you fine gentlemen. And look, I think we're going to have a good spirited fireside chat. But look, I'm not going to do too much in the particulars. So let's get it rocking. I'm ready to roll.
Absolutely. As we set this thing up, why don't you give us a little bit of game on kind of where you are now, in this thing, and as far as where you reside, where your people from, that type of stuff. Give us a little more about you so we can really warm up to who you are before you start giving us all the isms that you have professionally.
All right, that sounds good. So I would say who I am is much more simplistic than what I am. Who I am, Albert Thompson, Director of Brand Strategy, Transient Identiti, the firm, brand marketing firm. My wife and I have been running about 17 years.
Okay.
Look, so I'm a devoted father, certified girl dad, devoted husband. I am an A&M Rappler, just if anybody out there who went to those other universities is tuning in. Okay. Those Rattlers like to bring things a certain way. Yeah. But yeah, man, look, I knew I wanted to do advertising in high school. So I'm fortunate, I'm blessed. Like one of those people who we want to do, I didn't stumble into it. I didn't fall in it backwards. When you hear me talk about the barrier of entry is low, I approached it as if it was high. The other thing is I'm probably the guy who looks at everything he does like it's his craft. So it doesn't matter if it's on the family front, if it's on the marital front, it's on the personal front, personal being like personal care, if it's on the business front. Everything is I treat as my craft. And I think the other thing I always say is no one would dishonor their craft. Right. They're an artiste. Somebody paints a crappy picture. I mean, we did have that stint with around NFTs. It looked like your toddler's artwork, but that's another conversation.
Right.
But I've always been that. I think as I've evolved, I've become what I've termed, and people have termed as more of a marketing technologist, a marketing guy who understands technology and how technology is reshaping or remapping the landscape of marketing as a discipline. On my whiteboard or glass board I have to my left, I put up this notion years ago: retire all outdated marketing paradigms. Everything that's old school and outdated, get rid of it. And look, that's a pursuit I'm still sort of on. I've been in the digital business 25 years, so really on the agency side or marketing consultancy side. For the first part, I've worked for a series of multicultural agencies, even though, I have my own thing, so I can speak to the idea of working underneath entrepreneurs who are Black and being my own in the same vein. So there'll be some duality in the conversations that we'll have, but I'm one of these people that I'm all about the pursuit. That's where I get my dopamine hit from. And I've treated myself like, as they say, a digital good. It's never finished. There'll be iPhone 90. We won't be around for it. But the same way technology keeps iterating, you got to keep doing that yourself. I'm one of these people who subscribes to the philosophy of intellectual curiosity above everything else. You got to stay intellectually curious at all costs. That's kind of the lifeblood, the fuel. So, I'm one of these people. I'm always hungry, never full. I can always eat. And I think, look, being an executive of color, that is something that has to be innately within you. So, look, enough about me giving you the run up, or as you say, putting you on game as to who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, look, bro. Matter of fact, I don't know what to say. I mean, buddy, you came in. You a high intellectual dude. I was like, I gotta ask my daughter to get the dictionary so I can look up some stuff that you were talking about, right? But I'm glad you're here because you're definitely going to educate us. Let me throw this at you, my brother.
Right.
Why did you want to come on a Black Executive Perspective podcast to talk about the topic that we're going to talk about today?
I think people don't get to the simplistic truth of certain things in being a Black executive, in particular, an entrepreneur. And I think, you got to get grounded in this conversation. And I think what people always have to look at when they step into any team, when they enter the frame, as they say, they got to understand the infrastructure behind it. They got to understand who owns it, who runs it, and for whom it was built for. Because that's going to set the rules of engagement and let you know what kind of perceived glass ceilings are out there. What is a break glass in case of emergency type of scenario? How are you going to work the system? How you got to develop these crowd of witnesses. Those are the people who are going to help you get there. You can't get there alone. All those things set the stage. And look, it may mean you need to exit the frame.
Right.
And I think that's what people don't understand. They get emotionally tied about the unequalness of the opportunity. And look, I think it was the Republicans said they did get this right. We what is it? We offer equal opportunity, but not equal outcomes.
Right.
And look, so that's the notion that if you find yourself on the playing field for opportunity, looking to the one to the right and to the left, you're here. That means you got considered. And the hard thing in this world is to be considered. Execution, you should be prepared for. There's no such thing as the equality in outcomes. And half of the reason the outcomes are actualized is we don't understand the infrastructure and how it was designed and how we have to work with it. And to the degree that we're even skilled to conquer it.
Awesome, buddy. I mean, look, seems like this is the Matrix 5, the movie, right? So you're gonna teach us. I think I'm ready to take the blue pill. All right. So, buddy, you seem like you chomping at the bit? You ready to talk about it, my brother?
I'm ready to talk about it.
All right, man. Let's talk about it.
Right, so let me start by activating your endorphins again with understanding the algorithm in business that you speak to. Give me a little bit more on that so I can help to get closer to where you are.
Yeah, look, we are living in a world, at this point, sort of, literally, definitely metaphorically speaking, we are living in an algorithm-driven world. But these things have always been at play. Look, you could look at it from the algorithm of social media to what's operating your phone to family dynamics. There's always kind of an algorithm at play. The question is, do you know how to break it? Like I can break my algorithm on social media and Google by mixing it up and changing up what I look at to create a new set point. Okay, some people need to understand, what is the set point? What's yours? In other words, the station you come from, your background, your ability, your skill, your network. And then what's the set point of the enterprise you're trying to inbound on, whether it's just a company, it's a career path, or literally it is the basis of industry or a specific industry. A lot of people haven't studied that. When I say it's designed, it's the algorithm that's running it, because you're going to need to understand how it's engineered to break it down, because algorithms are already set and designed to reward certain factions. Like when people get there, they kind of underwear in a bunch over programmatic or social media. It's like, you need to understand the algorithms and why they were designed in such a way and why they would continue to mutate and get more intelligent to figure out if they're going to service you or be a disservice to you. And I think that's what people are looking at when they first step into the frame, let's say, of being a Black executive.
It's time to rethink your protein. AgileLab's protein bars are crafted with high-quality protein, double the leucine, and enriched branched-chain amino acids, essential for optimal muscle recovery. Finally, a protein bar that works as hard as you do. So visit agilelabs.com and use the code BEP to get 20% off. That's agilelabs.com, promo code BEP.
Well, let's look at the peer group. Let's look at how they got there. Let's look at their reward system based upon their network and net worth. What was the value proposition? I used to tell my kids, look, if you want to get recruited into a university, they want to know how you're going to put in. Because the algorithm rewards are put in, being boosters.
Right.
But there's no shade in the fact that there are females in Division I sports teams that are on the team because their parents are high-end boosters. Okay, there's still this element of payola because money still talks. So you have to really get into what is making this machine move? Who is it being rewarded? And look, I may not be able to compete at that level. I don't come from parents who have money with boosters, but maybe I need to align myself with the faction of those players who are supported by those individuals because now I'm in that inner circle. And it's the same thing when you start looking at things around recruiting in. Remember, life is all about laws of attraction. We want somebody to do business with us, work with us, rock with us. Yes, to some degree, sleep with us. That's the game. And when you start to look at the idea of creating attraction, you have to create attraction against the algorithms that are running and driving infrastructure. So you can now be threaded into it. Because what people don't realize is that what you're trying to do is climb some sort of dominance hierarchy, metaphorically speaking. To get to a top, one, the view is very different. And two, you can understand how the pieces are being moved around. And three, who the power players and power brokers are. And as you can understand, I just said a lot that requires a ton of diligence, which people aren't even exercising to begin with.
So
let me
go ahead, Chris.
Let me ask you this, let me ask you this. So in this concept, it seems to be fluid. And the issue that we run into as obviously blacks in corporate America is they move the goalposts frequently, right? So when you jump on that lane and you're trying to tap into that algorithm, how purposeful should you be? And how nimble should you create your construct to where you can move when it moves, just like that?
Well, here's the thing.
Or be able to see when it moves, or more importantly, anticipate that it's going to move.
Yeah, what you said is exactly where I was about to go, and here's why. People would tell me, will characterize me in third person. Albert's that guy is like 2 years ahead. I decided that if you want to predict the future, you have to go invent it. And it's not my quote, but I got it on my desk. Another one I have was like, opportunities are often, neatly disguised as obstacles.
Or hard work, right?
But when you start to look at it, it's like, look, if you go into the future, then your job is to take notes, synthesize, and come back to help predict where it is going, to be there before the goalpost is moved. Because when you understand that, then you can understand that movement of the goalpost isn't actually very real. It looks like it's a 70-yard field goal, but it's really still set at an extra point distance. Okay? Because sometimes the movement is a perception. It is actually not a reality. But when you can already talk about where the goalpost is shit, how the ask goes up before anyone has laid hands on it, then you might be in the position where you're moving the goalpost. And maybe the movement that is a reaction is not distance, but they're trying to move it side to side. It's like, look, I can make a chip shot from an angle. I can hit it dead on. I can hit it from the other hash mark. So I made a decision like, look, to my statement earlier, if I'm going to predict the future, I need to go invent it. I need to go into the future and see what the future is holding and figure out how to break it down. What are the tenets that will come downstream? Because people don't want a revolution. They want an evolution. So how am I going to figure out what that evolution looks like in a compounding manner? And that's very much what I started to do in my discipline of digital marketing, is go off into the future, look at advanced technology, look at what's applicable. You got to remember, the internet design is everything secondhand military. Web3 is the dark web, basically. Web 1 and 2 were iterations of, military comms. We just didn't see it in the public eye, it wasn't commercialized. Drones came from strike points. We got them delivering pizza now. Cell phone technology, everything comes from the military. You look at what the military is tinkering with. That'll tell you what we'll get our hands on once they realize the humans won't blow up the planet. So I started looking at that type of application, like what are they messing with on the horizon? It's going to come into the space for advertising, media, marketing. And then I would start projecting where it's going, to where the people would be like, all right, I ain't ready, but I see what you're saying. then the people who would move the goalposts like, well, we can't move it. He's standing on another 50-yard line, 3 adjacent fields over.
Right.
He's going to catch it, and it's going to be a kick 6. He's going to run it back.
Right.
So
Right.
that changed my level in the space of understanding how goalposts could be moved against.
So, buddy, so number one, and you know, I dig what you're saying, and it's playing chess, not checkers, creating your own opportunity, you being ahead of the game because you see the playing field. But let's back up for a second, right? For the layman person, the person who just walked into corporate America, the black executive that they don't understand this yet, right? They're there to work hard, right? They're under the guise that I do a good job, they're gonna promote me. They think that their boss has their best interests at heart, right? So speak in layman terms, how that individual can eventually get, and since we're playing the matrix here, we might as well say it what it is, all right? That they can be able to see an agent before or they can dodge bullets, right? Before bullets come. But just more importantly, spend a little time on what the playing field is and what is the algorithm, and in layman's term for the everyday corporate exec.
Absolutely. So I'm going to give you a great, you're going to love this. This is a quote from the rich. The rich have long since checked out from the retail media version of reality. When they tell you how to make money, wait for somebody on TV to tell you what stock to buy. That's not a reality in their world to get rich. They don't even listen. When it looks like there's a fire sale in the industry and everybody's abandoning it, guess who stays? The rich. You have to walk in the door knowing you are not going to accept the retail media version of reality that will be merchandised by that enterprise. They give you the handbook. You need to understand it and be compliant to it. But know that people who move up, they're the exception to a lot of these rules.
So stop right there, because that's an excellent point. So just again, I just want to, because I want you to keep going, but let's break it down at that level, then you can go to the next level. So what you're saying is, and I'm going to use a handbook example. What you're saying is, when you start, they give you a handbook. All right. These are the things they want you to do. This is our mission, is what we believe in, blah, 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 blah. Right. What you're saying, you can follow that if you want to, but it's not going to get you to where you want to go, because there's a whole nother algorithm that you got to get up into that level. Right. Like that, what's that? In that, what we call it? We call it the, what's the jet stream? You got to get into the jet stream, right? Because then those winds will take you to where you still got to navigate them, but you got to get in there. But just being at that handbook level, that's not reality in terms of taking you to the next level. Is that what I'm hearing?
I always use this analogy with people. You got to think about your trajectory, your life trajectory, your career trajectory, your expertise trajectory. I'm the guy that tells people, you're going to rock with me. I'm here to pull the nose of the plane up, to reset the trajectory. You're at a point where it's going to take you 10 years to get to 10,000 feet. I'm about, can we climb to 30,000 feet right off takeoff? Because the air is clearer up there. It's calm. It's quiet. It's a different world. The storms don't necessarily exist. People aren't in pursuit of a higher trajectory. There's no such thing as getting a handbook and going in and chilling. You'll just be casting minions who aren't there to work, but are there to have water cooled, safe, conversating, and talk about the kids and sports all day long. They already know what to do with you. They need those people. But if you were in the pursuit of success, that's a very different trajectory. As I say, that's a different trajectory. That's a totally different playbook. Matter of fact, it's not in print. It's literally walking the halls. You have to understand that, this is a country that prints money. There's a lot of money out there. Money is always moving, and it's always in transit. Success a lot of times is about boosting it. How are we going to boost it in transit? Like it's the Italian job. And what I find is that people don't really have these binary mindsets. And a binary mindset is, I'm going to pull the nose of the plane up to reset my trajectory of success, to climb higher, be there faster, period. And I'm only looking at things that do that. I'm looking at a line of people that will help me get there, opportunities, a series of micro decisions that all compound to big, big, big decisions. That is a very binary mindset. A lot of people don't have one. When you talk to them, you can tell they're kind of untethered and unsure. Like, that's not going to work. You need to stick to the handbook for right now. because it requires a different ethos. It did, 100% it is. He said, matter of fact, there's 2 other handbooks. You should go get them too. So, but what I want people to understand, because you made the comment about how I addressed it on the podcast, I'm very clear as a Black executive, they're going to look at you anyways. You might as well be memorable, but be interesting. People only want to hear from interesting people who've done interesting things. They don't want to hear from the handbook people. So you only get a certain kind of conversation, a certain kind of attention. I just did a presentation yesterday, Programmatic I/O in New York, around attention. And I said, the war is for attention. And everyone's trying to steal it. It doesn't matter if it's political leaders, brands, Nike versus Adidas, Louis versus Gucci, Ford versus Ferrari. The war is for attention. And you have to understand, you're going to get attention being an ethnic minority, especially Black. You're just going to get it from the white team. You might as well be memorable, and you might as well make them see what you want to see to be interesting. But you have to have a plan in executing. Meaning, once they step into your frame, what do you then have to offer? How are you going to accelerate this? How are you unique? How are you going to step outside the lines very quickly? Even if you step right back in, you got to let them know you can step outside the lines and then step back in. So it's the difference between wearing a baseball cap low and backwards to me wearing a flat bill dope hat with a floral print. It's the idea that it's still within a guideline, but I'm bending the
You're being you. Yeah.
flexing, pressing the flesh a little bit, and I'm willing to do it, but I'll be very, very articulate, buttoned up in business. But what they see is, oh, this dude rocks on a different frequency. And there's got to be something there. There's something unique there. Look, this is a culmination of work. What you see is 25 years in the making. Yeah, there's probably some things inherently I got from my parents. My father's a retired physician, my mother's a retired school teacher. So I got good old school values. I pray for the folks who don't. So I'm blessed. I have some of the stereotypical dreams, but it was by design. It was where I pursued. It's where I went out. The algorithm that's around me brings that into the frame. The people that I put around me bring that into the frame. It's all work. It's all a design, but it's very purposeful. And I think when people go in an organization, you have to be purposeful. You can't be drifting. Okay, like you need to get your footing, figure out what it's about, what the opportunities are for, and strategically decide: is this a place I'm going to lay real roots, or is this a stepping stone in the trajectory to get to another place that will then continue to move that trajectory? And I would always tell my kids, there's no wasted movement here, as long as you're extracting learning and being taught something in the process. But remember, taking a step, even falling, is moving forward. And people are like, well, I don't want to fall, I don't want to do that. But fall is moving forward. The question is, you're going to catch yourself and start running. Or if you fall, can you get back up? But you're going to get back up probably 4 feet further in front of you than you were, and then probably stay on your feet, the 6 feet removed. Like, people just don't understand, like, it's still movement. And I think what people have to understand that means movement means some level of progress towards some level of goal or aim. And look, just keep movement for the sake of keeping loose. Get the joints from stepping up. Keep your mind fresh. Even if you don't have the answer yet, movement will land you in places that you didn't think you were naturally going to discover sitting still at your set point.
I just want to say this one thing, Chris. Well, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, buddy.
Okay. Well, so, one of the things I think about as you're speaking is nothing grows in a comfort zone, and we're good with that. But everybody's not equipped to absorb change. In fact, we're biologically and psychologically resistant to change. So when you talk about this trajectory and you climbing or inclining to that level, there's some turbulence. How did you navigate through that turbulence, not to be afraid and to say it's going to be fine? There was no captain that spoke and said, hey, I'm going to warn you, it's about to get bumpy, but we're going to come out on the other side of it. And a lot of times when that fear, that apprehension, that paralyzes a lot of brothers because everything is good and they just stay good. That's the reason why people aren't great, is because they're cool with being good. How did you make that leap and say, you know what, I'm going to go through this turbulence because I realize it's smoother sailing at a higher level?
Yeah, look, I've learned the hard way.
Okay.
If you teach people how to win, they're not interested. They think they crushed it. As you say, I'm good. You're like, okay. If you teach them they're failing, or you spook them that failure is on the horizon, like it's coming over them, then they get all over it. And I've learned how to spook people into, hey, it could be coming if you don't listen to me. It doesn't matter if it's a friend, a partner, or whatever. So then they're like, okay, I don't want to fail, Albert. So what do I need to do? So that's the first thing I looked at. The second thing is, I was lucky enough to have people speak life into me, my crowd of witnesses. Like my father, mentor in college, taught me not to fear anyone. They're like, person put on shoes the same way you do. Gotta lead the same way you do. So look, obviously fear the wrath of God, and I fear leaving the earth before all the pertinent work I've done. Other than that, I don't fear the person in front of me. And I think a lot of people are too afraid of the people in front of them and being judged. And my thing is, I told somebody one time, I said, I don't know why you care about anyone that represents two things. People who have the life you don't want, why would you listen to them? And people who not show up to your funeral, why would they matter? And then at that point, again, binary mindset, people are like, oh, well, I guess you're right. Because those two overlapping circles are super small. And I'm just dealing with coworkers here. So unless I go tomorrow night where all the company got to come, I really have nothing to worry about that. So all of those things were like, all right, so I'm going to do it. The other thing is I'm not afraid to fail fast and fail early. If you fail early, nobody's looking. You know what I'm saying? You at home getting them dance steps down because you about to go to a Chris Brown concert, and you want to rock with his vibe. Nobody see you fall or hit the wall or whatever. Nobody's looking. They're going to be looking once you get in the concert arena, so you better have it tight. They're going to be like, look at this. I mean, that's the thing. I spent a lot of time as an independent person, because my brother was older, so I had to solve things on my own or fix them on my own. So I have very much an independent mind. And I still prescribe to the fact that the independent minds are the ones who win the most. Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, Chip Booth, Carol Shelby. You just go down category by category. The people who are the rainmakers all were very, Michael Bay, very much independent mindset. So I don't mind being a little bit of a maverick. Because people think mavericks are radicals. Like, no, mavericks figure out how the rules will stretch or don't apply to the configuration of what they're doing. They're very disruptive, but disruptive very much for good. But the thing is that people get irritated because they can pull things off they can't. That's really what it is. Right. So that becomes a judge. And I've learned that an ideal is a judge by nature because it's a reflection of what you haven't done. A lot of people don't want to take the step, get the turbulence, because it will be a judge against what they have not mastered. Right. I stumbled here. I made a mistake. I guess I wasn't good enough. Now it's judging me. This act, and the self-consciousness, as you said, doesn't allow people to move past it. For me, I just get up, I look around. Oh, ain't nobody see that? You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna keep rocking and rolling. I won't stumble the next time.
Right.
Before you click on this, Tony,
let
me jump in real quick because he said something that reminded me of something I read recently about the Mamba mentality and the fact that Kobe said he doesn't understand pressure because that just means you haven't prepared. You know what I mean? Like, there's like, if you practicing those dance steps at home and you get that thing down, then there is no pressure. There is no anxiety when you arrive because you know you and what you're capable of, and all you can do is that, right? And so it's a lot. I think you might be not giving enough credence to the amount of preparation and sharpening that you've done on the front end.
And
you know what I mean?
And that's an excellent, because to be fair, and again, it's like when you, because I want to hear your responses, Albert, but Chris makes an excellent point, and I want to just go a little deeper with it. When you're here now, right? You got the look, you got the dope look, you confident, right? And obviously you didn't come out the womb that way. Okay. And so, and you said it earlier, I made a lot of mistakes, or when I failed fast, and all those things, right? So at the end of the day, you didn't just show up and start saying, I'm going to fly here and I want to be 30,000 feet. Okay. So talk a little bit about the work that you put in, because see what happens, my brother, is that people are going to listen to this, they're going to watch it. They're going to see this sharp, articulate, this brother, he can be anything. He's so confident. I can't be that. I can't do that, right? And you didn't show up that way. You're that way now. So talk a little bit about the work that you had to put in, the preparation, right? The lessons, the humbleness you probably had to deal with in terms of learning when you made mistakes. And then you applied them to make you even sharper and stronger and all that.
100%. Like, growing up, I was a shy kid. If I was on stage in elementary school, I'd be shaking, nervous and anxious. I didn't know how to speak. Jaws were tight. It just wasn't my lane, because I was probably more, obviously, introverted at that time. But I think as I got older, certain things gave me confidence. I played sports. I played football. Football teaches a lot of discipline, especially for young men. It makes you gives you confidence. You put on muscle. You learn to address physicality. Look, men set the frame for children for security and safety of the world. They give daughters, especially, and I have twin girls, a sense of how safe the world is, because men talk about how to carry yourself through it physically, as they say, through the hard state, not on the phone, as well as how to protect yourself. What is an actual threat? What is not? And that's very important to sort of understand what to be afraid of and what is not. So I think you have to come through a series of institutions that help you, give you the discipline. So if you play football and I ran track too, you get the discipline of hard work. And look, I remember I played soccer, but in that day, if you were athletic, you didn't play soccer. They're like, oh no, you go play football. I'm like, okay. I didn't even really know what it was. And then, I was a kicker starting off because I played soccer and I did kick off an extra point. But I think people were enamored because I was so small. It's probably like 4 foot something. I was the smallest on the team. So they were just happy to see it. It's probably cute. It was probably novel.
Right.
I was no interest in being, but my goal was to play running back and to start. And look, I started with 7th grade football. Didn't really get my stride in terms of running the ball until 10th grade. Now, you get me in the streets in some pickup game in the neighborhood, and I was Barry Sanders already. But that's without pads on. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's just me running around in a circle, making people tired. I mean, I could run back any kick. But then you start to understand, and that's the business of different entrepreneurship versus corporation, where the rules are there. You have to work with them. You have to understand the assignments, hit hold, all that stuff. All these things I had to learn, and it took time to the point where then I became a more featured player in the offense because I had speed, I had moves. And I think my coaches said, look, you really made gains. First of all, I grew. I was 5'1" when I got my driver's license. So I put on 6 inches in like a little over a year. That helped. I put on speed, I put on muscle. Like the highest max I squatted was 500 pounds. And someone who weighed less than a third of that. Like that was impressive. And then people were like, look, like you in the off season, like you did it. You put on speed, muscle, agility. And look, I used to be running around the backyard with a ball. You can make move air. Wasn't nobody there. It was just me. I didn't have all the simulation and sports science I got today. And what I'm saying is I put in work because I dreamt about it. It was visualization before it was a term. To go out there, I used to play. I had a basketball driveway. I would go out there and shoot jump shots in the rain. So as somebody who was 6 inches shorter than the average opponent that was standing in front of me, I could hop and lob balls over them because I practiced jumping and shooting to give myself elevation and range. But again, nobody saw the hours and all the air balls and all that stuff. You got to be willing to put in the time when nobody's looking. You got to give yourself patience. People ask me, how are you such good shape? I'm like, well, I'm only trying to get 1% better a year. And they just kind of look at me because they thinking they're going to have a week. No, a year. If I get 1% better a year, like 15 years, guess what I'll be? I'll be looking like Frank Grillo.
Right.
Better at 53 than he was at 30 when he was a model. I mean, again, a binary mindset. I only have to do this. I'm going to tell you, people ask me, how do you get so smart in digital? I read. They're like, what do you mean? I read every digital white paper, Fast Company and Inc. magazine for 7 years relentlessly while I was just doing regular ad agency stuff. Nothing near the station of what I'm doing now involved in. But I basically prepped my mind. I rewired it. I'm not a creative person, even though my mom was a craft person and a teacher. I got all these creative design books on my desk. And I studied brand identity, logos, design, symmetry, color, drop cards, portfolios, books, everything. To teach myself design. I could always strategize and be a thinker, but I wanted strategy and creativity to meet so I could move in all these lanes. So I taught myself. So Kelly, the founder of IDEO, talks about T-shaped people who have range and depth. The world made I-shaped people. That's the average educational system. The people who just go across and don't do no work, we got plenty of them. These are people who just manage to talk all day. I want to have range and I want to have depth to out-execute anyone in the thing I have depth in. Because all I do is add layers. I mean, yes, that is a mindset. But again, what people don't know is I spent 7 to 10 years just in reading white papers, all this stuff, the industry standard, Harvard Business Review. I collect magazines, all these things that became instruments of intellect. When people said, look, real knowledge is in books, I was like, all right, I'll get a few books. I'm not a book reader, but let me get some white papers and magazines and I'll be good enough. But what they're saying is real knowledge is in print. People just don't want to go discover it. But that becomes the acceleration of of the idea. So I was lucky enough to have a mindset. Look, I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Florida A&M. Their business school had professional development. And that was important for young Black individuals who are going to enter corporate. Taught you how to speak, how to interface with executives, how to ask intelligent, compounded 3-part questions, they call it, how to do oral skills. And my first speaking engagement was in front of the entire student body in an oratorical contest. I didn't win. I didn't even place, but people said mine was the most memorable. So that told me something. Maybe I didn't have the best subject matter, but my performance and articulation was the most entertaining. And by the way, I had to close it out, which is why I had to improvise. And that was out of nervousness, not out of skill. But then I started studying people who were the most fluent and they're the best at improvising, like comedians. Black comedians are the best at it. Weaving in material, inflection and tones of voice, to entertain, to read an audience, to get people to lock in. If people seem sleepy, how to wake them up. All those things I study. Even I study people who are very charismatic, Robert Downey Jr., late night talk show hosts. How do they get people just to confess on the couch like nothing?
Right.
You know, disarm people, bring them into the frame, and make it an amazing narrative. Like, oh, this is a skill that has to be developed. So I started looking at everything as a skill that has to be developed. And I would tell my daughters, I said, look, there's 3 things in this world. As Denzel said, there's trained and untrained. And the third one is gifted. Most people ain't gifted. So I'm like, who are we going to be? We're going to be trained. So you're going to have to train. And I watched my kids come to their sports, and they were about middle of the pack to the point that they got to the top of the dominance hierarchy as a contributor on the team. And it was very clear to everyone how good they were, peers, parents, even judges. So, you know, to manifest that, you know, my wife and our kids, and then live it at the same time means I was getting the duality of the wherein, and then working under Black agency executives for what they had accomplished. You know, I worked at Uniworld, so that's Byron Lewis, who first multicultural agency. Howard Buford used to work under Byron at Prime Access, and then obviously working under Aaron Walton at Walton Isaacson. You start to understand how they culminated their success. What was their currency? And then how do I need to have a little bit of that? You know, Aaron Walton and I, if you look at photos 10 years ago, we both look real different. Neither one of us really got hair. I sent him a picture. We both got a one blade, you know. We got these old corporate suits, you know, with the old stripes. And now, you know, either one of us could pop on a red carpet. That is an evolution of, but that is the work and time in that's put into it. And I'm very big on the whole idea of time in. And I think that'll lead into this next part is currency.
Buddy, go right, because I want to go there, because, you know, one of the things. So number one, thank you for that, right? Because I know people listening to that, they now get a sense that, hey, this brother, you know what I'm saying, he put in the work in everything that he did, from sports to the digital field to advertising. So that's how he shows up, right?
I'm going to share this story. One of my professors was introducing me and another student. Okay, now I was an AB student. I graduated with 3.5. This other person was 4.0 off the charts. He said, this student, he's one of the smartest and brightest in our institution, kind of the beacon of light. And this one, Albert, he's the smartest because he locked down the prettiest girl in the business school. Okay. Fast forward, my wife and I, we have our company before this other person. He swallowed the blue pill a decade after us. I've reached a point in the dominance hierarchy in a similar business. I'm pretty certain this other person is not by comparable standards. And I try to do it well, as they say. And what I'm saying is, in everything I was ever in, I was the least favorite, maybe at the bottom tier, middle of the pack at best. Even when I used to race BMX, I'm mad they got in the Olympics now, so I stayed with it. You know, I was small and I could get major height because I was lightweight. I was a little dude, but I didn't have the best bike. You know what I'm saying? But look, I went out, I had my dad take me out to the dirt tracks and practice when no one was out there and mastered all the jumps to the point that I could get out there and go out there and win and beat people. And my story is I was the underdog, you know, maybe not well liked, but in terms of execution, the underdog, the one that nobody saw coming. I'm that guy who's like, I want to be sneaky. I like the sinister tracks. I don't want people to see me come. But once they hear it, or then they're like, oh, and like, yeah. But I don't want people to think that it was some accident. Look, I can't tell you how many scriptures I read. I got scripture notes on my phone and pads, so, and like I would read and ask God, why you got me in this holding pad? I'm ready to launch, ready to move. I understand now, being wiser, as to why God's timing is very different. But I was very much like, look, I'm ready. And the only thing I said to myself, I'm going to be even more ready. I didn't get frustrated like this millennials I don't like this coming out. I'm going to the next one. Like, you didn't even contribute. You didn't even stay. You just want to what are we talking about? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, no, I want to be impactful. I want my work to be more sort of memorialized. So I want to stay and lay down ink. And when people look at something like, oh, Albert did that, I can tell by the writing. I can tell by the visuals. I want people to know my imprint. But that was something that I decided as someone who is a challenger brand coming from the middle to the front, that I wanted people to understand that I laid that ink up there. And no, it's undeniable. And then people say, man, you was always like that dude. I'm like, I didn't feel like it, but I appreciate it.
If you like what you hear and want to join us on this journey of making uncomfortable conversations comfortable, please subscribe to a Black Executive Perspective podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe now to stay connected for more episodes that challenge, inspire, and lead the change.
So
let me ask you this. Let me say this real quick, Tony. You talked about the stick-to-itiveness and the hard work and the behind-the-scenes activities that you engaged in to build yourself, build your confidence, build your own worth. And then you also talked about the mentorship, whether it be the university or the individuals that you shouted out. And we all know the importance of mentors in spaces that you can see yourself in and that develop and help you when you skin your knee and pull you up or give you guidance. But in the idea of that's a science. All of that stuff is scientific, right? Real simple. You put this in, there's going to be an output. Where does the art come in into knowing when to strike the iron, knowing when to take that leap of faith, knowing when to, because that's not purely scientific. You would agree, right? That's the thing where you got to feel the vibration. Like you said, tap into the frequency, and the frequency is not scientific. It's artistic. And so how much credence do you give to your artistic endeavors, your artistic side to know, you know what, I'm feeling in my gut. It's in my bones. This is the one, this is the time. Because what you described with you and your guy that was your rival that wasn't a rival, he didn't hit when you hit because you felt something. How did you have the ability to say, you know what, I'm going to go with my gut on this one?
Right. So the first thing to address that is he had the spoils of riches, intellect, educate. It came easy. For me, I had to earn it. It's different when you have to earn it the hard way. It's different respect for it. It's more in passion. I think the biggest thing is, so when we launched our company, Transient Identity, it was the tagline is strategy meets design. And it's to that simple premise. I would listen to creative people, and after a while, I'm like, okay, you lost me. Like, you just went off on a tangent, because a lot of creative people have an ADD mind. When they hear something, that their mind drifts down that tangent and doesn't hear the other things. They say that the ADD is not the ability to you can't pay attention to all the things. Mm-hmm. It's not that you can't pay attention to nothing. It's recasted wrong. So I was like, okay, what if strategy got a hold of creativity and made it purposeful, out to execution, meaningful? And what if creativity taught strategy not to be so freaking rigid? Because I would always say, like, why is a creative agency and Booz Allen not the same company? They should be one company. So you have creativity and strategic execution all in one house. Like, Transient was created on one premise. Why is Anderson Consulting and JWT not one company? You got a management consulting come up with frameworks and strategy, and then they just hand it off. They don't even know if it worked. They ain't stick around. They on to the next $1 million an hour project. And then JWT got to execute the stuff and come with an ad campaign. They don't even know why it was created. They get a little brief, but they don't know the why. And I'm like, that's a bust. Then I look at brands who do it all together. Louis Vuitton, understand why the leather is sourced this way, why the stitching is this way, all the attention to details. Lamborghini, you can't be a brand manager of Lamborghini if you don't understand the design between every element of it, from the key fob to the aero components to the carbotanium in the wheels. Everything is for a reason. And that's some of the Takumi mastery that's in the Japanese design for Lexus. Everything is purposeful. And that was my thing. It's like, creativity needs to be more purposeful so it has real outcomes that make money. And then strategy needs to be not so rigid, to be open, flexible, adaptable to move. And if the two can intersect, that's Will I Am. Highest level left brain and right brain, according to, I don't know, it's HBR, Fast Company, one of them, Inc. said, Will I Am. High level intellectual creativity. He can come up with things out of thin air, and then he can turn around and execute it strategically like it's nobody's business. And I'm like, man. So he has a high level of both hemispheres. I'm like, yeah, I need that. That's what I'm going for. So I would read books and participate in creative things, go to Art Basel, go into Wynwood in Miami, and appreciate the artistry and understand. And I talk to artists. What made you come up with the inspiration? I want to hear the story. It's the storytelling that's like, same thing with artistry and lyrics. When people say, man, you can just kind of riff and improvise when you talk. I said, there are times when I'm listening to hip hop music and I'm listening to cadence of artists like Drake, and I'm like, what if I could guest speak with that kind of flow? That would be amazing. You know, what if I could go on verses, but it's intellectual verses. We're fireside chatting on a topic and we're debating it. We got to go fast. Everything's fast response. I'm like, okay, well, let me train myself to be able to speak to that level of fluency at that speed by listening to bars, okay? For years, I've been doing this, about 3 years. And then let me listen to some verses and then some political commentary of how people go back and forth and listen to the other person and pick it apart and come with a return. So I can now sit in an audience when I'm not guest speaking, and in my mind, I'm picking apart what speakers are saying and understanding my rebuttal if I were asked a question. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that in strategic plan or a deck later. None of these things are accidents. They are all by design. Right. Some of the things are on my own, but I listen to people who are smarter than me in a series of domains. Understand what the binary philosophy makes them so good. And then I indoctrinate. So when people get worried about AI, I'm like, I like what Michael Bay said. Michael Bay said, AI can't do me. I come up on the set and I come up with different shots on the fly. Let's do it. And I said, So I got to be that dynamic with my strategic and thinking plan. I got to be willing to cut on a dime to the point that AI is like, hey, where you going? My large language model is based on this. You over here now. I'm like, yeah, I know. You do be. I mean, all these things I pay attention to why they say these things and their level of truth. And that has everything to do with me further developing myself.
Right. So, buddy, let's do this because, number one, that was awesome. I want to make sure that because you said a lot earlier, and I want to make sure that we're giving, people here that's very intrigued in terms of, you're talking about getting into the jet stream and being separate and being in understand the algorithm and all that. So one of the major things, and we're about to go to it, but I want to get back to it. One of the major things is people come into a job or a career, they're thinking of currency from the monetary standpoint.
Yeah.
One of the things that you talk about, right, you definitely want to dive into is social currency, right? So speak a little bit, keep it tight. Speak a little bit, what is social currency and how people can utilize that currency, just maybe even more valuable than they can use the regular dollar, and how that social currency, once they understand it, how they can just go back to that algorithm, use it to be able to take them to wherever they want to go. And then more importantly, how they can misuse it. And then next thing you know, they end up broke. And then to your point, they're looking for some other spot or they're stuck.
Yeah. I think the first thing is you got to treat yourself, and Shannon Sharp and I had this conversation when I had the pleasure of moderating him, about treating yourself like a piece of real estate. His response was prime real estate. You're going to come into an organization and occupy space. Take up more as much as you can. That's the goal.
So when you say take up more, like specifically, what does that mean?
Getting more attention as to your value to the organization. Contribute more. Network more. Take up more space in the room. Look, if you look at what I'm wearing, I take up more space as the person with the smallest frame. Okay, it's no secret that photographers in an event will come find me and stop me and be like, "Gotta have that as part of the reel." So the metaphorically, I say, take up space. What can I get my hands on? What can I contribute to? I have to be, my value prop has to be more than the job. But if I treat myself like real estate, it's like, look, you're a little piece of land with a little she shed on it. Okay, but they need to turn around like, oh, you're gonna put up a condo now. Then they're going to turn around and go, oh, it's a single family home. Oh, I see you expanding units. You better turn this into a town center? Yes, that is the goal. That's the idea of taking up space. But that comes with level of involvement. Get involved in committees. Get on panels. Go to their events. Try to get some one-on-one coffee hours with executives above them. Say, look, I just want to hear your story. Remember, every human being on the planet has a story to tell. They're looking for people to tell it. Be the person who received it, because you're going to figure out how to take that information and weaponize it yourself. People just don't do that simple thing. Get outside your division. Network with people in other divisions, because that may be your next division you go work in. There's nothing wrong with having more than one person to answer to. When I was at Bell Atlantic before it came to Verizon, I had two bosses. One was on value-added services, like call waiting, and the other one was on multicultural, who ended up becoming a mentor to me. So I had two bosses, but it's the reason I'm probably doing multicultural now for 20 years. You understand? But I understand the logistical nuts and bolts of components of a company because I did the other side. So I started that very early. Like, oh, I want to get my hand. I want to do both. And they're like, "You sure?" I'm like, yes. And they're like, "Oh, this guy came from family. He got an MBA. He got range." They didn't even worry about it. Set the frame for who I am longer down the line to have more range later. So now I can go in a company and actually work in 2 divisions. When I did a graduate internship at Pfizer, I actually worked in 3 scopes under communications. They didn't think I could do it, but I basically was in 4 lanes. Most of the interns before stayed in the 1. I'm just not interested in that. I want to get my hands on stuff. And that's really part of the playbook of building currency. You got to build a narrative. You want as many people to evangelize and talk about you. Your crowd of witnesses. The witnesses you got to build. You get friends, you get family, but they're not being actually you. That may not be their job. They don't understand what you do anyway. I mean, how many times our parents like, "What do you do after doing your job?" But obviously you making money because you ain't come home. You know how that goes.
Right.
So the other thing is like, you want to figure out how to build currency, and currency is treat everything like the land, because that's how this world works. If land is valuable, everyone's trying to buy it. Oh, I need to own that. The people who design the infrastructure are constantly looking for land to acquire. And I say land metaphorically, but really, land could be money, land could be resourcing, land could be IP, intellectual property, intellectual capital. Land could be a competitive advantage. It could be an inside track. One of my greatest gifts that I give people is line of sight. Like, you can't see what I see. I have it. How much do you want for it? They're like, "Oh, we'll take it." Because I'm like, you'll never have it. And then land obviously comes to things physical. Build a company worth buying. Okay? Treat it like it's land that you want to be acquired, even if you have never any intention of selling it. Because that's about creating desire. That's about creating laws of attraction. That's about creating attention. And it adds up to your overall currency. 2 people standing in front of you, somebody's worth 3x than the other one. That's the idea. It's no
That's
different
just the
than
bottom line. Yeah.
tech. When they say self-serve is worth 10x revenue. Managed serve is 2 to 3x. Just servicing it, 1.1. I mean, it's not a lot. Think about what you're building. Managed self-serve is worth way more as land. That's self-sufficient, very independent people. Oh, I don't have to give you no instructions. You already know the assignment. I ain't finished talking. And you're going to kill it. You work 3x than that person over here. Or I got a handhold. As a matter of fact, I ain't calling them next time. They can just go do whatever. That's somebody else's problem. But you're going to be my person. I have long been people's hired gun. Because when they say people watch movies and they get into characters and love them because they can identify with the person in the movie, I'm that guy. I can identify with Denzel Equalizer. I can also be, look at, I used to tell people, I'm like Samuel Jackson in the movie The Cleaner. The one who cleans up all the blood from a mob hit and make it look like it never happened. Like, never. I'm that guy. People call me like, "We got a situation." Like, "How bad? How much time?" "All right, done." And then they turn around. It's like it never happened. It's all fixed and solved. That's currency I have created. The idea that I'm the guy 2 years ahead, that's currency that I've gotten the reputation on them. Because I just speaking about stuff and people like, "We don't know what you're saying, but it sounds amazing." Aaron Walton was like, "Albert's the guy. He starts talking. You just start reaching in your wallet. You're like, how much?" I thought it was the funniest thing. With truth. I come into the room and make it clear I'm coming for the money because I'm trying to build for currency.
So just to be clear here, right? Because I love it. And again, I want to make sure we're in layman's terms, okay? So what you're saying is that when you come in, you want to take up space. That means you want to volunteer. "Hey, I want to do this," or "I want to go over to this department." You build relationships throughout the organization. If you're managed service, that means you just working here and that's it. Your self-service, you're out making stuff happen, build and creating currency. That currency turns to real opportunity that you can cash in on later on. It's an equity in that. It's a 10x, just using your example, right? Because those individuals, and there's only a few individuals that do that. That's why it's a 10x, right? There's 1 million people doing managed service. Okay, so that's number one. All right, that's number one. Number two, I want you to go real quickly into where as people, as entrepreneurs, and one of the things that we struggle with is because we know there's a system.
Yeah.
And we want to get out. We don't want no help. We want to break away from that system. We want to start our own thing, right? And I think me and you talked about this a couple of weeks ago. You're like, "Tony, I get that. But you still got to be part of the system. You have to learn, because once you're in the system, yeah, you can be, to your point now, you can be programmatic, you can be self-service. Then you open yourself up to a lot of opportunities. But if you ain't in the system and they don't know you, it don't matter what you got. It doesn't matter what talent you have. You ain't going to be able to take advantage of it. So speak to that, my brother.
Yeah, look, I think what, people have to really get grounded and humble themselves on. There's always a design and play you don't see. You don't think Wu-Tang didn't have a strategy behind the scenes? The RZA was brilliant. I got all these artists. I'm gonna put them on, scatter them all these labels. They're all gonna be bangers. We're gonna tour together, but I'm actually gonna create a non-competing currency of Wu-Tang forever, not Method Man forever, not Inspector Deck forever, not Raekwon or Ghostface forever. Wu-Tang is forever. First of all, that's branded. They've spoken into existence. I saw a picket sign for politicians. Politicians will come and go, but Wu-Tang is forever. They spoke it into future trajectory. We will be in infamy like the Beatles. Again, the state of mind is that we will be here, but the design behind it is what he orchestrated with all the artists to always get along, look after each other, because Wu-Tang forever, not none of these single dudes forever. Doesn't matter what label you're on. We all family. We all stick around. Now that all these documentaries come out, all these rappers hung out, even on different labels. They all vibe. It looked like they were competing in the streets. No. Behind the scenes, they still working. I realized when I worked at a public affairs firm, all the world leaders know each other like me and you know each other. They go kick it. They just got different views of how they're going to run their station. And then every night they argue, which translates into the press. It's a machine. Kim Jong ain't gonna long nuclear weapons over. He wants attention. But there's a system behind the scenes. We don't look at what's in play here. Part of it, we don't have the exposure, but we have to understand, just like all these NFL players trading jerseys and playing mad with each other and hanging out and talking about the dynamics of the game and how we're going to stand on business on this issue. There's a system behind it. We don't act like it's actually engineered. We think these people are independent operators. Look at all the people we found out. This person wrote all these songs. Look at all the songs Bruno Mars did. You don't think he was studying what popped and what didn't to come formulaically to the table and say, okay, if I take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that, a little bit of that, and throw a little James Brown on it, boom. I've no one like me has ever existed for it. There is a design and a system behind it. What people don't understand, once the point of proud witnesses, you have to find out the system that's working that's not in view. And that's the structure you need. If you were trying to launch a retail brand, Black beauty brand, these are cropping up everywhere. Hair cream, stuff in your hair, face, all that stuff. You got to understand who controls distribution. So let's be clear. P&G and Unilever suppress that, as they should. Top-down disruption, okay? So if you're going to disrupt through, you have to break through and juxtapose your POV, your identity mark against them. You don't make stuff in the spectrum of people of color, right? So Bevel, Tristan Walker, built some real estate somebody had to go buy. They're like, build that, we got to snatch him up. Because he understood, as long as I can break through in direct distribution, take up space, same thing with Dollar Shave Club. Are you selling $20 razors? Yeah, everybody ain't got money like that. Once you get to the hotel, when you put leftovers at home, we're going to have those, but we're going to have a subscription model delivery, so it's recurring revenue. No one's ever thought about a subscription. Their subscription is going to Target and drop another $20. Our subscription is we'll get it out to you in 2 days. And all of a sudden, guess who has to buy them? It's real estate that matters because they figured out there's a system behind it. And I think that's what Black people aren't doing. They're not looking at it. Other entrepreneurs as well. Figure out the system working behind the one that's front facing, because the one that's front facing is the retail media version of it. You got to go figure out what rich people know the system, how it really works and what they're willing to buy and how these things move. Because let's be clear, it's no accident we see the same shipping trucks on the highways every week. Distribution is a system. If you're going to break into it, you have to figure out how it works, which is the engineer around it. And maybe you're like, look, we don't have money to play a game. We're just going to use drones because there's a loophole in the FDA, FAA regulations that drones can fly at 50 feet. So we can just do that. Look, people are looking for points of friction. That's the other thing. You got to look for white spaces. You got to look for loopholes. Look, loopholes are there for a reason. It's no accident. There are loopholes in tax reporting, so people who figure out the system can go do it. Those are the people who unplug from the matrix, don't subscribe to the retail media version of reality, and have figured out a new reality they can absolutely be leveraged. The whole idea that Apple has foreign countries, foreign operations as an enterprise, for which the U.S. operation licenses that, so that revenue flows through one because it's cheaper from a tax perspective, is a design because there is a loophole that if you figure it out, you can capitalize on. We're not looking for all these things. The thing that's amazing is people are unpacking it now, and they posting it to Instagram. You know what the problem is for the average person of color? Their algorithm got more, Club Shay Shay and artists and rappers and people doing this and this who've already made it, and they're not getting the algorithm intelligence of how systems work. You want to understand how your business needs to work. You need to rewire the algorithm that you're putting out in search and social, so that you start getting spam with newsletters about how to build your better business. Half the reason I can keep up with stuff in space is I'm getting inbound from newsletters based upon my activity. So now I'm getting put on game more so and accelerate with artificial intelligence or the pharmaceutical business or emerging tech. My algorithm suits me. That is the design that is behind the scenes that now is feeding me and accelerating me, while other people are being left further and further behind in the same conversation because their algorithm, they're looking at cats.
Right.
They're looking at pets do stunts at home. They're looking at challenges on TikTok. I don't look at that. I don't want that inbound. I want the currency inbound. I've literally made sure to reset what comes in. People see that. You know what happens? I don't get people who aren't about business coming to me. I get people who are about business coming to me. So all of that algorithmically starts to feed you. You know when they say when you set a singular aim, everything comes into frame? Yeah. I'm very much that guy about everything. There are a lot of Black people who aren't developing a singular aim so it comes into the frame. And none of the stuff even comes to them. And there's a ceiling that they're about to hit. They don't even know it's there. I can look at it like, man, your ceiling's about 10 feet away. Well, you're 9 months.
But you have to be cognizant of how hard it is to commit to the aperture. So you're talking about that. You dig me? Right? You're committing to the aperture, meaning that you aren't allowing yourself to be pop culture distracted. But see, you got so much hip hop game. You ride a fine line, and I'm gonna say, you know what I'm saying. You're doing a good job of it. Everybody doesn't have that skill set, that balance. That's your low center of gravity. But the reality of it is, it's a tough commitment to make when the world allows for a complainer. The world allows for a woe is me or a GoFundMe type of mentality.
When you're an independent by yourself, you didn't get to complain to nobody. The other thing is I say is, if you look at what I do on Instagram, I look at cars and clothes. No surprise. But what I do on other platforms is different. You got people just doing everything across them all. So
that's what I was getting at.
So I get my hip hop fix, here and there, but I have a channel for that and it can do its thing. In other channels, it's about business for business. So I set rules of engagement for the pipe.
There you go.
And
right.
There you go.
So listen, buddy, we're running out of time. So final thoughts, man. Keep it tight. What do you want to leave the audience, my man?
Look, as I kind of said, intellectual curiosity needs to be the frame. See, people focus on too much what's in the picture instead of the frame. You ever seen a picture? Dope's got a dope frame. You could just put some blurred paint in there and it does its thing and it's accent decor. I got some of this house. My wife's done a lovely job. It's the frame that sets it off. Only the posters in the back is the picture powerful enough that need no frame. That's a rarity. But you're talking about, a 9-figure franchise that hopefully is still rolling. People need to set the frame as intellectual curiosity so you don't get distracted about what's in it because it's going to change. It's going to evolve. The same thing is in business, you got to set the frame. This is the kind of company we will be when we enter the market space. This is the energy you will feel because the employees may change, the product may innovate, where we distribute, the pricing will go up and down. There may be market dynamics, blah, blah, blah. The same thing is you need to set your frame as an asset in the organization for this real estate or land you're trying to establish. This is what I will represent. I would always have people saying, Albert, you could probably be a model. I'm like, yeah, but they don't pay. So I'm here. Got an MBA. I'm here to be a businessman who will be well dressed. I just set the frame on. I can look the part when I walk in the room to steal the attention. Someone will come over and see if the intellect matches. I just need to move them to a place, maybe blow them away, then impress them. And they're like, okay, that was a complete view. But my thing is I'm setting the frame from the beginning that person probably means something. So I'm curious and it looks interesting. So let's go have a conversation and then you have to deliver on it. I think people need to set a better frame for the box they are in, or who they are, what they represent, to create attraction that draws them in, but also set the frame for what you won't tolerate. And I think that's very important. Which is why I don't have people bringing foolishness to me. They're like, nah, I can't really mess with that guy.
Right.
Man, it's first of all, we definitely want to thank you for your time and attention on this, and appreciate you coming through. What are your handles? Where can people, find what you have going on? Where can they connect with you in that regard and get some of what you're giving out from an energy perspective?
No, absolutely. Definitely find me on LinkedIn. I usually post a video almost daily. I was talking about the sector. So look, I'm always trying to elevate the space. Like that's my goal. It's a great industry. There's just some crappy people in it. They need to get out. Hopefully AI gets rid of some of the riffraff, like burning off the foliage in the forest there. You can get rid of that. We didn't need that. Turn it into the soil. Do something. Also have, it's not a podcast. It's more of a monologue. It's on Spotify, and it's named after the company called the Transient Identity. And look, I just put thoughts out. Thoughts related to business, related to AI, technology. It could be anything along the spectrum of media and advertising, business strategy, rules of engagements. Didn't have the aspirations like you gentlemen to do a dedicated fine show, but I just put my thoughts out there instead of, it's like more like an audio blog. Again, all I'm trying to do is document. A lot of what you see is me documenting what's going on. I'm not necessarily there for likes and all this other stuff. I just want people to level up, find, reach their aspirations.
Awesome, my brother. Cool. Well, listen, man, you definitely met our aspirations today, because you came on and really killed it. We would love to have you come back and 100%. Talk about specific topics that you're very well versed. You're very well read. So we'd love to have you come back on. So Albert Thompson, thanks a lot for joining the Black Executive Perspective podcast, my brother.
No, I appreciate it. Peace to you, brothers, and I wish you well. Live well, live fast, live hard. Like they say, this ain't no holdback game. You got to drive it through the wheels fall off.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks, my brother. So I think it's now time.
Tony's Tidbit.
And then the tidbit is, true progress in diversity isn't about breaking ceilings. It's about understanding the algorithm, understanding the system, and making that system work for you. Right? And you've heard a lot of that today from our brother, Albert Thompson.
So we at the portion of our program where we like to remind you weekly to tune in to Need to Know with Nsinga. This is a segment of the Black Executive Perspective podcast where Dr. Nsinga Burton dives into thought-provoking and poignant topics that affect our world, our community, and our lives as a whole. Make sure you tune in for this depth of information and this wealth of knowledge. You don't want to miss it.
Yeah, you don't want to miss it. And I'm glad you didn't miss today, our episode, Navigating the Business Landscape as a Person of Color, by our brother, Albert Thompson.
We at this time always want to invite you to our call to action, LESS, L-E-S-S, where the L stands for learn. Learn as much as you can, grow, like Mr. Albert Thompson said, and be knowledgeable, be in the know as things come up, so therefore you can prepare yourself for that next level and constantly evolve. And make sure you understand and educate yourself on racial and cultural nuances.
Absolutely, Chris. And then E, the E stands for empathy, right? Once you've learned, once you become enlightened, now you should be more empathetic to your brother and sister, your colleagues that you didn't know what their plight was.
And then the first S is for share. Make sure that you share this. Don't hide it, divide it. Make sure that you got people that you care about, that you're responsible for, that you rock with, that you let them know what you've learned. Go back and tell them that.
Exactly, right? And then once you share, now you want to stop. Like I said, our goal is to stop all forms of discrimination. So you want to stop stuff in your path. So if Uncle Joe says something inappropriate at the Thanksgiving table, you say, Uncle Joe, we don't believe that. We don't say that. And you stop it right there. So if everyone can incorporate less, LESS, will build a more fair, more understanding world. And more importantly, we'll be able to see the change that we want to see, because less will become more.
Make sure that you guys are tuning in to these episodes, but more importantly, make sure that you're checking us out on the website, signing up for the newsletter, reaching us on times where you aren't able to listen, where you're just sitting around and thinking about us. Give us some ideas, give us some inspiration, review us, subscribe wherever you're listening, and tell them where they can find us, Tony.
Buddy, they can find us on all our social channels, which is X, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok at A Black Exec. For our fabulous, high intellect, high energy guy that can squat 550 pounds, right? And still can run circles around you when it comes to intellect, Albert Thompson. For my co-host with the most, Crispy Reed. For my lady behind the glass, Michaela, who's making this all work. I'm TonyTidbit. We talked about it. We thought about it. We love you. And we're out.
A Black Executive Perspective.